Hello, I'd like you all now to take a very good look at this map. This is a map of 16th century London. Between the 15th and the 16th centuries, London was a very vibrant and active city. The population had almost quadrupled in that period of time, and people were living cheek by jowl, as you can see, in London. Now, within this area here, there was about, there would have been 30 monasteries, but a lot of them would have been destroyed or changed ownership because of the dissolution of the monasteries. There were about 10 prisons. There were about 100 churches. There were numerous inns and taverns. It was a wonder that anybody could find a place to live or do their business. To the north of the city here is Charterhouse, where the Carthusian monks lived. And we move a bit to the south, we pass Smithfield, then to Newgate Prison. And to the right here is St. Paul's, which was a huge wooden edifice dominating the whole area. And we moved further to the east, and we have the Tower Hill and the Tower of London guarding the entrance to the city by the river. And then we have London Bridge, the only bridge over the river. It was not your normal thoroughfare, because on this bridge people lived. They had their houses and they had their businesses. And because this was the only bridge into London, many people earned a living by being boatmen, and they would ferry people across the river at various points, because this got quite congested. And if anybody wanted to go further west, they would normally take a boat all the way down to Westminster or Chelsea. Now, as you pass over the bridge and you turn to your right, you come to this area here. In this area, it's very much an entertainment area, because you have a bear theatre where bear baiting was the national pastime, and down here you have the Players' Theatre, which became Shakespeare's Globe. This area here is Winchester Palace, which preceded Southwark Cathedral, and attached to that is the Clink Street prison, where we will go and see just how much the Catholics suffered at that time. Hello and welcome to Clink Street Prison. In English we have the phrase "in the clink", and it refers to people who are in prison. Its origins are to be found here in Clink Street Prison. Now you may well ask, what are we doing outside a prison? Well, in Reformation times, prisons were very, very important for Catholics, because they actually helped Catholics protect and develop their faith. It was only in the prisons that Catholics could meet unhindered. When you study the history and the story of the martyrs, you now and again come across some very significant conditions and circumstances which gain a significance all of their own. Here in Clink Street Prison, there was a priest called John Lowe. He was hung, drawn and quartered at Tyburn in 1586, and, according to custom, his head was impaled on London Bridge. But his mother also lived on London Bridge. Can you imagine the suffering she endured, seeing the impaled head of her son on the bridge every day? It takes the whole concept of martyrdom simply beyond death and suffering to a completely new level. In comparison with the other prisons in London at the time, Clink Street Prison was at the top of the preferred list, especially for Catholics. It certainly was the best of a very bad lot. This was mainly due to how the prison system worked at the time. It must be remembered that the prison governor or supervisor was an appointed role. It carried hardly any salary. The head of the prison earned his salary from the prisoners. Any benefits the prisoner wanted had to be paid for. Food, no money, no food. Bed, with or without a mattress. Cell, with a view. Would you like to receive visitors? Pay the fee. Would you like to be released from your chains? Pay the fee. Even the freedom to go and come, as long as you were back in time for lockup, came at a price. At the end of his stay, the prisoner was often presented with a bill. It is understood that a portion of the money that the jailer received was passed to the person who appointed him. The Catholics took full advantage of this pay-as-you-go system. Catholics would queue outside the prison to go to Mass or go to confession. They would cross the doorman's palm with a coin, and in they would go. It was a well-known secret that these things were happening. The people involved, however, were onto a good thing and turned a blind eye. Although the overwhelming majority of the prisoners were Catholics, and there was safety in numbers, caution and care were still the bywords. Among the list of prisoners at Clink Street, there are two names that stand out: Anthony Tyrrell and Anthony Mundy. These were two apostatized priests in the pay of Sir Francis Walsingham, the government spymaster. It was their job to send back information about Catholic activity to their paymaster. Very much related to this is the strange fact that John Gerard acquired a great taste for oranges and lemons. He bought a lot of these and shared them among the guards. However, his apparent largesse had an ulterior motive. From the peel and the pips, he would make rosary beads, but from the juice, he perfected the technique of making invisible ink. He would make a rosary beads, write an innocent letter accompanying it, knowing that the letter would be read by unfriendly eyes, with the real message being written in invisible ink, which only the recipient would be able to read. Other notables who spent time at Clink Street were William Weston, who ran the English mission until his arrest in 1586 and subsequent incarceration in Wisbeach Castle. He was eventually banished in 1603. He was succeeded as head of the English mission by Henry Garnet. Blessed John Lowe spent some time there and was executed at Tyburn in 1586. St. John Southwell, whose dismembered body was sewn together and is now enshrined at Westminster Cathedral, spent some time at Clink Street Prison. The prison itself remained operational until 1780, when it was destroyed in the Gordon Riots. The Gordon Riots expressed very strong anti-Catholic feelings. Even all those years later, the Clink Street prison was seen as an expression of the Catholic faith and was therefore destroyed by the rioters.
Behind me stands the Old Bailey. The Old Bailey is the top criminal court in the country. On that spot, there has always been a building that has dispensed justice. In the past, hundreds of years ago, it was the site of Newgate Prison. Now, we know that many people went through Newgate. However, records at the time are not as accurate as they are today. But with many thousands of criminals, It was the starting place on their last journey from here to Tyburn.
Newgate Prison got its name as it was built as a new gate by which people could enter or leave the old city of London. The monarch often used Newgate as a holding place for heretics, traitors and rebels brought to London for trial. Newgate Prison accommodated both men and women within its walls. Although records were not well kept, we do know that Newgate Prison was a colourful collection of saints and sinners. Daniel Defoe, of Robinson Crusoe fame, spent some time there. It was said that the character of Moll Flanders was inspired by a woman who was actually born in Newgate Prison. Oscar Wilde, the author, also spent time there, as did Ben Jonson, the playwright and poet. Titus Oates, whose lies and perjuries sent many an innocent and holy Catholic to the scaffold, was imprisoned there for his blatant lies. A certain Venetian libertine called Giacomo Casanova was also held there for alleged bigamy. Now moving on to the saints. Robert Southwell, the Jesuit priest and poet, spent some time there. His life story, capture and execution is the real stuff of a Hollywood blockbuster. Not far from Newgate stood the Charterhouse. It had become a sign of defiance and resistance to Henry VIII. In order to break their resolve, on May the 29th, 1537, 10 Carthusian monks were dragged from the Charterhouse to nearby Newgate Prison. There the monks were chained to the wall and left to starve without any food and water. These monks had never been tried or found guilty of any charge. Initially, a lady called Margaret Clement, who was the adopted daughter of St. Thomas More, managed to trick her way into the prison and offer them some care. However, when her good works were discovered, she was refused entry. Between May the 29th to June the 16th, 7 of them died of starvation. Inexplicably, 2 others lived until August and September. 1 other outlived them all and was released from his chains, but in 1540 he was taken to Tyburn, where he was hung, drawn and quartered. He was Blessed William Horne, a labourer. They were all beatified by Pope Leo XIII on December the 29th, 1886.
In 1763, all public executions ceased at Tyburn. From then on, all public executions took place outside Newgate Prison, the Old Bailey. After 1838, all public executions ceased altogether, and all executions took place behind the walls of the Old Bailey. Now, if you look across the road here, you will see the Church of St. Sepulchre. Now, in that church, there is a bell. And when executions were taking place at Newgate Prison, this bell was carried over at midnight to the Old Bailey, and it was rung outside the cells of the prisoners who were to be executed that day.
This was very much a death knell, with an accompanying verse. All you that in the condemned hole do lie, prepare you, for tomorrow you shall die. Watch all and pray, the hour is drawing near, that you before Almighty God will appear. Examine well yourselves, in time repent, that you not to eternal flames be sent. And when St. Sepulchre's bell tomorrow tolls, the Lord above have mercy on your souls.